This is Caesarea Philippi in northern Israel. And the borders of Lebanon and Syria are just miles from here. Now, down below, there is a massive cave in the cliff wall. And back in the day, that river flowed directly from the mouth of the cave, giving it kind of an otherworldly feel. It was like a river was ascending from the underworld. And because of that, there was a worship sanctuary that was built there to the Greek god Pan, that half-goat, half-man god that watched over shepherds. Pan's sanctuary was right at the base of the cliff, and his statue was placed in one of the niches in the cliff face. Later, Herod the Great would build a temple here for the worship of Caesar Augustus. And then when Herod dies, his kingdom gets split up, divided, and his son Philip ends up ruling in this area and makes his administrative offices here. He names the place Caesarea Philippi. Caesarea in honor of Caesar in Rome, and Philippi to distinguish it from other cities by the same name. This is Philip's Caesarea. And because this was a pagan worship center, let's just say that this wasn't a place that a self-respecting religious Jew would want to hang out in Jesus' day. And yet we find Jesus here. We find him here with his disciples, and this was about as far north as Jesus traveled. Now, his disciples have been with him for 2.5 years, and it is here, right here at Caesarea Philippi, that Jesus decides to ask them a very pivotal question. Jesus asks, what are people saying about me? Who do people think I am? And then his disciples offered various responses, floating different opinions of the day. And then Jesus flips the question and he says, and what about you? Who do you think I am? Who do you say that I am? Now, there are several answers that would have been accurate. You are a healer, you are a teacher, you are a servant. But after following him around for 2.5 years, Peter responds on behalf of the 12. And Peter says this, he says, you are the Christ. And this is huge, that Jesus makes them pinpoint his identity. Because, see, there is a deep connection between who he is and what he can do.
All right, how we doing? Cool, it's good to see you. So glad that you're here today, and I want to welcome those of you joining us from our campuses as well as Ada Bible Church online. My name's Aaron. If we haven't met, I'm student ministries pastor here, and I have the privilege of opening the scriptures with all of you today for part 4 of this series, Doubter's Guide to Jesus. And I just want to begin with a little conversation about heroes, specifically national heroes. And so I'm talking about people in our history who sort of rose up and challenged something that was wrong, something that was broken, something that was messed up in our society, in our world. And so I wonder who comes to mind for you. I thought I would share a couple people that came to mind for me. First person here is Abe Lincoln. Came to power in our country at a crucial time, and he challenged Southern secession in the Civil War and also challenged the institution of slavery. Just a huge impact that he had on our country. He's a national hero. Second person that came to mind, this is Susan B. Anthony. And she fought against slavery, and she also challenged an injustice in our society where about half of our population was not represented in our political system. She fought tirelessly for the right to vote for women, another national hero for us. Another person that comes to mind, Dwight Eisenhower. He led the Allied armies against Nazi Germany. He challenged Hitler and the evil of the Nazi regime. This guy is a national hero for us. And then one more, Martin Luther King Jr. He challenged racism, he challenged segregation, and he fought for civil rights, ended up giving his life for the cause, just another great national hero for us. And you might be thinking, this is cool, but what does this have to do with the Doubter's Guide to Jesus? Well, here's the thing. There's a backdrop to all of this, all these stories about Jesus, his life and his ministry. There's something going on in Israel with the Jewish people as Jesus hits the scene. And what it was a longing, a hope, I would even say a desperation for a national hero. They were saying, we need a hero. God, would you raise up for us a hero who will challenge Rome? Because Rome ruled over Israel, and they were sick of it. They were sick of Roman soldiers marching through their streets. They were sick of being taxed by Rome. They were sick of Romans building pagan temples on their soil. And so they are longing for, they are desperate for a national hero who will come and challenge Rome and make them free once again. And this idea of a hero is all over Jewish literature of this time period. And so I thought I would show you an example. This does not come from the Bible, but this is from a writing about a century before Jesus. This kind of captures this expectation. It goes like this: raise up unto them, that's talking about the Jewish people, their king, the son of David. You see this expected, this hoped for hero. They believed that he would be a king like David, and gird him with strength that he may shatter unrighteous rulers, the Romans, and that he may purge Jerusalem from Gentiles who trample down destruction. They had this hope, they had this expectation for this military king who would come and wield the sword against Rome, who would kick Rome out and make them free once again. They are longing for a national hero. And the image is the sword, but there was also a name associated with this longing, with this hope. And that word, actually a title, is Messiah. And maybe this is a word that you've heard of, grew up in church perhaps, and sang songs about Jesus being the Messiah. And if you're like me growing up in the church, you had no idea what that word actually meant. Who's with me? Okay. Messiah is a Hebrew word that captures this expectation and hope for this coming king who would rule Israel. The Hebrew word is Messiah, but there's also a Greek word because the New Testament is written in Greek, and that word is Christ. Messiah and Christ mean exactly the same thing. I just recognize that some of you just had your minds blown. Because this entire time you were thinking Jesus Christ, like that was like his last name, right? Like Joseph and Mary Christ, they had a son named Jesus Christ. Sorry, not true. Christ is a title. It means the same thing as Messiah. Actually predates the birth of Jesus because it's part of this expectation, this hope for this hero who would come and rescue Israel, who would challenge the Romans. And so this is the backdrop to our story today. And our story comes from the Gospel of Mark. And these first 4 books of the New Testament, they're what we call the Gospels. It's a word that simply means good news. And these 4 books are the historical accounts of Jesus' life and ministry written from 4 different eyewitness perspectives. And our story today comes from Mark chapter 8. And what's happening in this story is Jesus is taking his disciples on a bit of a road trip. So here's a map. They're coming from a town called Bethsaida, which is down by the Sea of Galilee, and they're traveling up to this place called Caesarea Philippi. This is about the farthest north that Jesus ever took his disciples. It's about a 25-mile trip. I'm guessing it took them all day to travel there. And Jesus takes them up to this city, and he starts a conversation about politics and about his identity. And this is a very interesting place to have this conversation because Caesarea Philippi is a very Roman city. It's a provincial capital. It might be the most Roman city in all of Israel. And so here's an illustration of what Caesarea Philippi probably looked like. This is based on the archaeological digs that they have done. So it's very Roman looking. And then up here by this hill, this mountain area, I have another picture to kind of show a closer look of that. These are temples, not Jewish temples. This here is a temple to Caesar Augustus. It is here that you would worship the Roman emperor as if he were a god. And over here is this temple to Pan, this Roman god that's legs are like a goat and upper body is like a man. And this is everything that the Jewish people hated about Rome. I just wonder, where did the money come from to build these temples? I think the Roman appointed king taxed the people, used their own money to build pagan temples that they hated. These are temples to Roman gods. This represents everything that the Jewish people hate about being under Roman occupation. And so with this city and these temples in the background, Jesus starts a little conversation about politics and about his identity. And he asks his disciples, hey, what are people saying about me? Who do people say that I am? Guys, what's the word on the street? What are people saying about my identity? And his disciples, they begin to answer him. They replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others still one of the prophets. Okay, what's going on here, these three people? Well, John the Baptist, he was a contemporary of Jesus. What did he do? Well, he challenged the Roman appointed king in his region about the way that he was living and leading his people, and he was killed for it. He was beheaded. He was a national hero who challenged the authority of Rome. Elijah, who was this guy? Back in the Jewish scriptures, the Old Testament, Elijah was a prophet who challenged an evil king and an evil queen, Ahab and Jezebel, who had introduced into the land of Israel the worship of Baal, this idol, and said, this is your official religion. And Elijah said, no. And he challenged them. He stood up to them on behalf of God. He was a national hero. And often when the Jewish people said one of the prophets, the first person that would come to mind would be Moses, like the leading figure in Jewish history. And what did Moses do? He challenged Pharaoh, and God used him to lead his people out of slavery. It's like national hero, national hero, national hero. And you can almost hear the population of Israel asking each other this question, kicking around this idea. Is he the hero that we're looking for? Is Jesus this Messiah? Is Jesus the Christ? Is Jesus the hero that we're looking for? And this is a question that's not just important for first century Israel. I believe it's a question that's important for us today. Because the people of Israel wanted Rome to be kicked out. That's what they wanted. And they're thinking, maybe Jesus is the hero who can give us that. But I wonder what it is that you want. Maybe as you look around at our country and you just think, man, we need a hero to sweep in here and just fix this political mess. We need somebody, a hero, to just show up and fix what's going wrong in our country. And maybe it's not in our nation, but maybe it's closer to home. Now, what I really want is for somebody to fix my financial situation. I need somebody to fix what's wrong in my family, what's wrong in my marriage, what's wrong with my kid. What is it that you want? That you're hoping that Jesus will do for you? Because the question is Jesus the hero that we're looking for? And if a hero is somebody that rises up and challenges something, what exactly did Jesus come to challenge? And the beautiful thing about this story of Jesus and his disciples and this conversation with Caesarea Philippi in the background is he's gonna answer these questions. He will reveal to them what kind of hero he is and exactly what it is that he came to challenge. And so just to give you some structure for the rest of our conversation today, it's gonna be 4 challenges that Jesus brings. All right, so here we are, Caesarea Philippi in the background. Jesus asks his disciples, hey, what are people saying? Well, it's like John the Baptist, maybe some people Elijah, other people one of the prophets. Jesus then takes the conversation and he points it directly at his disciples and he says, what do you think? What do you think about me? But what about you, he asked. Who do you say that I am? Focus is off of the crowd and now on the disciples. What about you? What do you think? And it just reminds me of being in class in school, the teacher's at the whiteboard and she points directly at you and says, hey, what's the answer to the question on the board? And you just feel the heat of the spotlight. All eyes turn to you. It's like being at a dinner party and a conversation is happening across the table and then it turns to politics and somebody from across the table, so who are you gonna vote for then? Really? Here? Now? Can we talk about this later? It's like the spotlight, everybody's looking at you. Or it's that moment when you've been dating for like 6 months, it's going really well. Another fantastic date, you drop her off at her apartment door and then she drops 3 pretty big words on you. She says, I love you. The heat of the spotlight, right? What do I say right now? Thank you. Or do you go with Han Solo from Star Wars? I know. Or do you give her 4 words right back? I love you too. But it's up to you now. Everybody's looking at you. This is the sense that I get of what it was like to be the disciples in this moment. Jesus takes the focus off the crowds, puts it right on them and says, okay, but what about you? I know what they're saying. I wanna know what you think, what you believe, what you say. First challenge that Jesus brings is he challenges our faith. He challenges the faith of his disciples, and I think he challenges our faith as well. And what I mean by this is that he's deeply interested in what each of us thinks about him individually. We're talking about a personal decision about the identity of Jesus. It's personal faith. It's individual belief that Jesus is interested in here. And you might be thinking, listen, I've been part of this church for a long time, okay? Like all of this and the campuses and everything, like I'm part of all of that. Okay. But what about you? What do you believe? What do you say about Jesus? Listen, I go to Christian school, you know, I'm in Bible class all the time, and I've learned a lot about all of that. Okay, but what about you? What do you say about Jesus? Listen, I was raised in a Christian family. You know, my parents have taught me faith all of my life. Okay, well, let's put your parents aside for a second. Those of you who are in middle school and high school, let's put your parents to the side. What do you think? It's about your personal belief. It's about your individual faith. I just think if I'm reading my Bible correctly, that every single one of us at some point will stand before God and have to answer this question. And I just don't believe that, hey, I'm with my wife. Okay, she's a big fan, so, you know. I don't think that's gonna work. I think Jesus would look at us right in the eyes and say, I know what they think. I know what your wife thinks. I know what your small group thinks, what your family thinks. I wanna know what you believe about me. It's personal, it's individual. Jesus came to challenge our faith. It's a question for us, it was a question for the disciples. So how did they answer it? What did they say? Well, let's take a look. Peter, who's often the spokesperson for the disciples, he's sort of the brash one, answers, you are the Messiah. And there it is. Peter says, you are the hero that we are waiting for. You are the one that we're looking for. You're the Messiah, you're the Christ. You are the one that will wield the sword. We are ready to follow you in overthrowing Rome. This is Peter. He's all about it. He's 100% in. He believes that Jesus is this hoped for, this expected hero. So he just drops the mic, and now what's Jesus gonna do? What does Jesus say? Jesus warned them not to tell anybody about him. And this is a strong word. He warned them not to tell anyone. He's like, don't you dare tell anybody about this. You are the one, you are the Messiah. Stop, don't tell anybody. What is that? Why would Jesus do this? Is he just introverted? Like, guys, I am tired of the crowds following us around. Just let's zip it because I need to. Probably not. Why does Jesus warn them not to tell anyone? I believe Jesus is fully aware that this title, Messiah, this title, Christ, when people hear this, they're just expecting, they're waiting, they're hoping for. And if it becomes clear he's the Christ, it's like back to the house, underneath the mattress, we all have our swords, let's go, let's overthrow Rome, we're ready to kick these guys out of here. Jesus knows that if word starts getting out, yeah, he's the one, there will be a revolution on his hands. And that's not what he wants to happen. But I think it's something else even deeper than that. Something that gets at the core of what Jesus is all about. And so we read next that he began to teach them. And why do you teach someone? Because they don't understand. Jesus, listen, guys, you are confused. Let me teach you. He began to teach them that the Son of Man, this is a different title that he uses for himself that's less politically charged. The Son of Man must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. That's like the three groups that kind of represented all the authority and leadership in Israel. The most important people will reject him, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Three important ideas here. He's gonna suffer, he's gonna be rejected, and he's gonna be killed. And I just imagine the disciples hearing this are like, well, okay, I think you used some wrong words. You mean conquer many things, right, Jesus? No, suffer. You said rejected, but I think you mean crowned, because the Messiah is gonna be like this kingly, royal figure. No, rejected. You said kill. I think you meant do the killing, because we all have our swords here and we're ready to take out. And Jesus put the sword back. No, I meant be killed. He's teaching them because they're confused. And as clearly as he can, he says to them, I am not the hero that you're looking for. I'm not the hero that you're expecting. And everything that you're expecting about me is off. It's wrong. That's not the hero that I am. You see, the second challenge that Jesus brings is he challenges our expectations. He tells the disciples very clearly, what you're expecting, that's not me. I did not come to conquer. I did not come to be crowned in that way. I did not come to kill. I came to suffer, to be rejected, to die. I'm not the one that you are expecting. And the disciples, of course, they're very sensible people. And so Peter says, wow, thank you, Jesus, for bringing clarity here, for clarifying this, because we were way off. We were over here with our swords and you're over here doing something else. I just want to thank you for correcting us, right? Disciples, no, that's not what they do. Okay. So he spoke plainly. Jesus makes this as clear as he can. He spoke plainly about this. And Peter took him aside and began to, what? Rebuke him. It's like Peter is trying to have a come to Jesus moment with Jesus. This is wild. I just imagine the scene where Peter takes Jesus aside, and this is not a nice conversation because he's rebuking him, and it's like, no, Jesus, absolutely not. This business about suffering and rejecting and dying, no, that's not you. You're the Messiah. Jesus, don't you care about what's going on here? See, I thought if I joined up with you, that you would fix this. I thought that if I joined up with you, that you would fix this problem with Rome, that you would fix this deal where we got soldiers marching through our streets, that you would fix this taxation and oppression, that you would fix this, that there are temples to pagan gods on our soil. Jesus, I thought if I joined up with you, that you would fix this. Have you ever had that thought? It's like, Jesus, I thought that if I joined up with you, that you would bring my kid back. I thought, Jesus, that if I joined up with you, that you would fix my marriage. I thought that you would fix this financial mess that we're in. Jesus, I thought that if I joined up with you, that you would heal my brother. I guess I just thought if I joined your team that you would do something for me. These are the words of somebody who is deeply disappointed because of missed expectations. Jesus, I thought that you would. And the sense I get from this story is that Jesus did not come to meet our expectations. He didn't come to meet the expectations of the disciples, and he didn't come to meet our expectations either. He came to challenge them. He is not the hero that they were looking for. And as I read this story, it's becoming clear to me that Jesus is not all that interested in fixing the problems around the disciples. And I don't think he's all that interested in fixing the problems around us. And so the question that comes up is, if Jesus didn't come to fix my problems, why exactly did he come? What did he come to fix? What exactly did he come to challenge? And this conversation between Jesus and his disciples, you can feel the energy escalating. It's like first Jesus, hey, I'm warning you, do not tell anybody. And Peter escalates it even further where he rebukes Jesus. No, Jesus, you are wrong. And now Jesus is going to absolutely drop the hammer on Peter. When Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, and I think what's going on here is he's over here with Peter, and then he looks back at his disciples, and they're going, well, are you the hero or not? Everybody's confused. And then Jesus rebuked Peter. He returns a rebuke, and he says, get behind me, Satan. I don't know a lot, but I know that that is not something that you want to hear from Jesus. This is bad, right? But I find it very interesting that Jesus goes all the way to like the nuclear option here. What, really? Get behind me, Satan. I mean, he's Jesus, and this is one of his closest disciples. Why isn't it, Peter, okay, listen, I know you're upset, but you're confused about this, and I know you don't get it, but it's gonna make sense. Would you just trust me? Why doesn't this happen? Why does Jesus go all the way, DEFCON 5, nuclear option, get behind me, Satan? Why all the energy? What is going on? I think it has everything to do with the choice that Peter is forcing him into. Because Peter says, you are the Messiah, and you're supposed to wield the sword, and you're supposed to challenge Rome. That's what you're supposed to do. That's why you're here. And Jesus says, no, you don't understand that this is why I'm here. You think that it's about you, and you think it's about Israel, and you think it's about Rome. You think that I came to fix the problem that's around you. Peter, I came to fix the problem that's in you, the problem that's in all of us, the problem that's at the root of all the problems, the source of all the problems in the world, and that is sin. It's not about Israel, it's not about Rome, it's about the fact that every single human is rebellious, has rejected God, has sinned, and is now separated from God, and is facing death. That is what I came to fix, and it's gonna require suffering, it's gonna require rejection, and it's gonna require my death. And you're trying to get me to wield the sword, so now you're standing on Satan's team, and so get the heck out of the way. Get behind me, Satan. There's so much at stake here. It's the forgiveness of everyone. It's the restoration of all things. And Jesus, after his crucifixion and his resurrection, he explains this to his disciples, and you can find this in the Gospel of Luke. Jesus says to them, look, this is what is written, that the Messiah, and he is the Messiah, but he is not the military Messiah. He's not the conquering Messiah. He is the suffering Messiah. He is the crucified Christ. He will suffer. He will rise from the dead on the third day, and repentance for the forgiveness of sins, this is the deal, the forgiveness of sins will be preached in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. This is about the forgiveness of sins of all people. Peter, you're trying to get me to kick Rome out. I'm trying to invite Rome in. I'm trying to extend grace to the entire world. For God so loved the world that he gave his son. And if you look at a table of contents of the New Testament, it's like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts. What's the next book? Romans. Paul's letter to the Christians in Rome. And then there's a long list of a bunch of other cities, and they're all Roman city, Roman city, Roman city, Roman city, Roman city. You're trying to get me to kick them out. I'm trying to bring them in. You don't understand how much bigger, how much better, how much more important, how much more valuable it is what I came to do. Put down your sword. This is about the cross. You see, what Jesus is doing here is he's challenging his disciples' priorities. Your priority is Israel and Rome. My priority is the cross and bringing everyone back to the Father. He challenges our priorities. And I think we just need to be crystal clear that this is what Jesus is about at the core. He did not come to fix our problems. He came to fix the problem that's inside of us. That's the core issue. That's his absolute priority. But for those of us who at some point in our past have made a decision to accept what Jesus did for us, to give him authority in our lives, what does this look like in our life now with Christ? What does it look like to allow God to challenge our priorities? Well, as Jesus continues this conversation with Peter, I think this becomes clear. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, Peter, but merely human concerns. You're only concerned about what you want, about human concerns. And I like that he doesn't put this like verses. Look, it's either God's concerns or humans' concerns. No, you're merely concerned with human things. It's like your only focus. It's not necessarily this is bad. It's that your only focus is on what you want rather than what I want. And so I thought maybe this would be helpful. My concerns, God's concerns. What does this look like for us practically in life? Well, here's an example. Imagine with me a couple, they started a business and it's been going for like 5 years, and initially it was difficult. They were losing money, it was very challenging, but now they're in a space where things are really taking off. And it's like more money's coming in than they've ever had. And so now my concerns, well, what do we want? What do we want to do? We got some options here. I mean, we could afford to upgrade our house. We could afford to take a vacation. We've always thought about sending our kids to private school, like that is an option. What do I want? What do we want here? And to invite God to challenge our priorities is to ask a question. Okay, God, what would you like to do here? What is it that you desire in the midst of this season of blessing? Is there something that you want to do with some of our resources? It's not just what I want, but it's to ask the question, okay, God, what might you want to do here? Or maybe it's a mom who, for the better part of a decade, it's been at home with the kids, diapers, bottles, more diapers, potty training, back to the diapers, like it's just over and over for years. And now she's in this place where she's putting her youngest on the bus, and that bus takes that kid to a place called kindergarten, which sounds like a magical kingdom to this mother. And now, from like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., freedom. Something she hasn't experienced in almost a decade. My concerns. Okay, what do I want to do with my time? There's a lot of options. There's a lot of things that I could do. What do I want to do? To invite God to challenge our priorities is to ask a question. Okay, God, what do you want to do here? What is it that you desire? Is there something bigger, something better, something more important that I can do here? God, what do you want to do? And again, it's not like these things are bad, right? It's good. The mistake is to only ask, what do I want? Now, I believe that this applies for the good things that come our way in life, but also some of the difficulty and the challenging space. I mean, maybe for you, it's not a season of just financial plenty, but it's a season where there just literally isn't enough. And it's like, how are we going to get through this? my concerns? What do I want? Well, God, I'd really like you to fix this. I'd really like you to take this problem away so that we can have enough. But to allow God to challenge our priorities is to ask another question. God, in this space that I do not want, that I did not invite, is there something that you want to do here? In me, through my story, what do you desire to do? And the clearest example I thought of this, my concerns, God's concerns, comes from my own life. The conversation I had with my dad a couple months ago. You see, my dad had been experiencing some medical issues, and so he was going through a bunch of different tests. And so he called me on a Friday night and said, yeah, so I have cancer. And it just, took the wind right out of me, thinking about my dad. He's really young, my dad. And as he started to talk about this, he said, of course, I'm gonna ask God to take this away, God to heal me. Of course, we should be praying about that. But I also just believe that God's gonna use this. He's gonna use this. I can already see it bringing our family together. And it's like I saw with my dad, it's like, okay, what do I want? Well, I'd really like you to take this away. I don't want this. But at the same time, okay, God, what do you wanna do here? And how do you wanna use my story, my experience for something bigger, for something better, for something more valuable? It's like God's priorities. Jesus challenges us to ask that question, not just what I want, but what do you want? So as we read this story, it's becoming pretty clear that Jesus is not all that interested in fixing the problems out there. He's very interested in fixing what's messed up, what's broken in here. And the question is, well, how far does that go? How deep does that go? Well, Jesus continues here. Then he called the crowd to him. What's the crowd doing there? I thought it was Jesus and the disciples. Well, I think there's a crowd because there are a bunch of people in this country that are following Jesus around, asking the question, is he the hero that we're looking for? Is he the one? Is he the Messiah? Is he the Christ? People are following him around. So Jesus turns to this crowd and he says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. Hey, if you want to follow me, if you want to be one of my disciples, you got to say no to yourself, you got to die, and then you got to follow me. It's kind of confusing, right? Like, how does that work? Well, there's a version of the Bible, it's a paraphrase, it's called the Message. Anybody heard this or read this? Written by a guy named Eugene Peterson. And occasionally, I like to read passages in the Message. It just brings like a different viewpoint. And here, I think it's very helpful. This is how the Message reads, this exact same verse. Anyone who intends to come with me, who wants to be my disciple, has to let me lead. You're not in the driver's seat. I am. Don't run from suffering, embrace it. Follow me and I'll show you how. Look, if you want to follow me, I lead. You're not driving, I'm driving. Look, if you want to follow Jesus, if you want to be his disciple, Jesus says, I'm in charge. Total control. It looks like me driving and you in the passenger seat. Now, I think we're pretty comfortable with the opposite of that, where I'm driving, Jesus in the passenger seat, because I like some of Jesus' teachings, and I like the advice that he gives me. I'm driving and Jesus is like, hey, you might want to turn around because this road's gonna close, it could get dangerous. Jesus, I appreciate that, right? Like, it's helpful. This helps me live a better life. Thank you. Driving the car, Jesus, hey, you might want to turn the radio station because that song's kind of dirty. You're probably right, Jesus, thank you. Come to a four-way stop, hey, you should probably let that person go, first shall be last. Thank you, Jesus. Like, we're comfortable with us driving, Jesus in the passenger seat. I'm still in control, it's my life, this is helpful, I appreciate it. You've seen the bumper sticker, Jesus is my co-pilot, there it is. But if I'm reading this passage correctly, that's not it. Jesus is my co-pilot is off. Jesus is saying, no. You follow me, I'm the pilot. I'm the driver, you're in the passenger seat. And so the question is, who's driving in your life? Who's driving? Who has the wheel? Who's calling the shots? Who has authority? Because Jesus says, if you want to follow me, I lead, I drive. He tells his disciples, this business about the military Messiah, it's got to go. All of it. You got to follow me. It's my way. And then he continues to say, oh, look at that. There it is. Okay. What does Jesus challenge? He challenges everything. That's the idea. It's like, what does he want? He wants total control of everything. And let's continue on with what Jesus has to say here. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? And I just know that some of us listening today, this describes exactly what we're feeling. It's like on paper, according to what culture and society says, I have everything that should make me happy, that should bring me fulfillment, that should bring me meaning. But the truth is, I feel like I'm losing my soul. I feel like I'm forfeiting it. It isn't working. It's not filling me up. Maybe it's time to give him the driver's seat. Maybe it's time to allow him to challenge everything, to have total control in your life. And I just wonder, how much do you have to keep chasing? The next thing, and the next relationship, and the next accomplishment, and the next big thing, until it's like you have the whole world. What more could I gain? And yet, totally empty. It's not working. Maybe it's time to give him the driver's seat. Maybe it's time to surrender. He says, for whoever wants to save their life, whoever wants to find meaning and purpose and joy and all these things on their own, they will lose their life. They will lose it. But whoever loses their life, whoever gives up control, whoever surrenders to me and my gospel will save it. That's where life is found. I just believe with every bit of my soul that the life that we are after and the meaning that we crave, the purpose that we want, it doesn't come from accomplishment. It doesn't come from getting the next thing. You could get the whole world and it's not gonna work. In the end, it only comes when we surrender, when we hand over control, when we say, Jesus, you're in charge, you drive. I'll take the passenger seat. And so maybe for you, today's the day to finally give him control, to not just listen to his advice, but to let him lead. And maybe for you, that's the very first time that you've ever made that decision. And for others of us who have called ourselves Christians for years, perhaps, this is a challenge to give him the driver's seat again. Because it's easy to slip back into that seat, isn't it? And maybe this is a challenge. Okay, good reminder, Jesus, you have control. Who's driving? Jesus wants to challenge everything in our lives. So this question that we started with today, is Jesus the hero that you're looking for? The truth is, I'm not sure if he's the hero that you're looking for. But something I believe 100% is that he is the hero that you need. Because he is the one who can fix, who can restore what's wrong inside of us. This thing that's wrong in me, that's wrong in you, that's the culprit behind everything that's wrong in the world. Jesus, through his death, through his resurrection, has the power to fix that. He might not be the hero you're looking for, but he's absolutely the hero that you need. And that life, the life that we're looking for and longing for, is not found in chasing after the next thing, but it's found in total surrender. And so my hope for you is that you would give up control and that you would experience life like you've never known. And so I'd love to pray for you as we wrap up. And after I pray, our room hosts and campus pastors will come up in all of our environments and say a few final words, but let's pray together. God, I'm just grateful for your scriptures today. that you revealed yourself to us in these stories, in the life of Jesus. God, I'm so grateful that you clarified for us who Jesus really is and why he came, what exactly he came to challenge. And God, I'm so completely grateful that you came to deal with the problem that's at the root of all the problems, the problem of sin in our hearts. God, I'm so grateful for Jesus and what he did on the cross. And God, I recognize that some of us here today just need to give you control, just need to give you the driver's seat. God, I pray that you would give us courage to do that you would meet us right where we're at with your goodness, with your grace. God, I just give you honor for today, for who you are, for your son, Jesus, and we pray all this in his name. Amen.